Welcome students. Today we're going to discuss the Quarter 1, Module 1 of General Chemistry 1. Our topic is all about the properties of matter. And for our competencies, we have to use properties of matter to identify substances and to separate them. To start, let us have a word hand game. All you have to do is to find the terms listed in the term bank from the jumbled letters. Okay, let's start. Your time starts now. Words did you find? Yes, intensive, size, property, hat, mass, color, extensive, shape, and chemical. Later on, you will understand those words by discussing what are the properties of matter. If you will find the meaning of the word property in the dictionary, it means characteristic, traits, or qualities. But in science, what is really a properties of matter means? This only means that properties of matter are about the observable characteristic, traits, or qualities of matter. There are two major classifications of the properties. The first one are the physical property and the second one are the chemical property of matter. Physical properties of matter are also classified into two groups. First is the intensive physical property and the extensive physical property. What do you mean by the physical property of matter? Physical property of matter, it refers to the characteristic or trait of matter that can be observed or perceived with our senses without changing its composition. To understand the concept, take a look at the picture of the chalk. Could you determine some of the characteristics of the chalk as shown in the picture below? Yes. Based from our observation, we could say that the chalk is white in color and cylindrical in shape. We can identify the characteristic of the chalk using our sense. This means physical properties of matter can easily determine using our senses without changing or altering the composition of matter. If color and shape can be determined using our sense of sight, what properties can be determined if we still use the sense of touch and smell? You are right. If you will use the sense of touch, the properties of matter that could determine are the texture and the temperature. And if you will use the sense of smell, the property of matter that could determine is the scent. Now, those physical properties of matter which can have mentioned a while ago can be classified into two. These are the intensive physical property and the extensive physical property. But how is intensive physical property different from the extensive physical property? To find out, let us have the difference of intensive and extensive property with their examples. Intensive properties are the properties of matter that are not dependent on the amount of matter. Example of intensive properties: temperature, color, hardness, melting point, boiling point, pressure, and density. Earlier, we have identified the color and shape of the chalk. Those properties of chalk will fall under intensive physical property because if you increase the amount of chalk, the color and its shape will remain the same, which is white and cylindrical in shape. In addition to temperature, malleability, diffusion, and ductility are also under intensive property of matter. What is ductility? Ductility is the ability of the substance to be stretched into wire. A very good example of this property is found in the string of the guitar or wires inside the electrical connections. While malleability is the ability of substance to be hammered or transformed into a thin sheet. This can be seen among metals like bracelet that you have right now in your hands, tin cans, and metallic roofs of your houses. While diffusion is the ability of matter to be scattered or spread out, this can be observed when you add ink in the water. The ink will mix to the water even without stirring it. Can you cite other examples of diffusion? Next is the extensive property of matter. It is the characteristic or trait of matter which is dependent on the amount or quantity of the matter. The example of extensive properties of matter are the size, the mass, volume, density, length, and width. This means that if the amount of matter or particles is increased, it may cause changes in the size, mass, volume, density, length, and width of an object. Next, we are going to proceed on the chemical property of matter. This is the characteristic or trait that can be observed when the matter reacts to another substances. Combustibility, flammability, and oxidation like rusting are examples of chemical properties of matter. Sum up our discussion under the properties of matter are the physical and chemical properties. Physical properties can be observed or measured without changing the identity of the substance, while the chemical properties can be observed or measured as a substance changes in identity. That's it. Happy learning!